Okay, so today's question is 2015 ordinary level, question B2. It's an axonometric question, and basically we're going to have a quick look at it. So the first thing I suppose is always highlight the key parts of the question. So it says 3D graphic shows a dog kennel, so again that's context, that's what we're drawing. Below shows an incomplete isometric projection. So basically this is our isometric projection and obviously this is unfinished. The elevation and plan of the kennel are also shown, and again that's a good thing to read because if it doesn't say incomplete we know that these two views are fully done. The other thing that's key about it and a very good reason to read the question is because it generally gives you the order in which to do it. So the first thing it says, draw the given equilateral triangle. So that's probably what I'll do first. Then the axonometric axis x, y and z. So that's basically x, y and z. So basically then draw the elevation on the plan. So this is our elevation, our front view. This is our plan as positioned as shown. So that'll be part B. Draw the axonometric of the sides of the roof and of the sides and the roof. Okay, so basically this and the roof, and then do the curved semicircular opening. So again, it gives a good order in which to do it in. And interesting to say draw the equilateral triangle first, which is something that I wouldn't typically do. Normally I draw x, y and z, but in this case it's as good a way to start. It doesn't really matter which one you start. But basically I suppose the hardest thing to do at the start is just to position it. So the first thing, if we just have a very quick relook at it, we don't have an end view to do, right? So sometimes it's these two views, in this case it's not, it's this view and this view. We need space here, and this is the key thing to look at. How far out of the semicircle does this bit here stick out? So it sticks out a reasonable amount, right? So if we look at it, it's not quite, wouldn't take up a full circle there, but it takes out quite a bit. So the other thing that might be a good idea would be if we take our set squares and we just look at right, this takes up, let's see, 70 is working out about 50. And this takes up 180, so it is going to be quite tight on our page. Just proportionally, if we look at this, it looks to be about 90, and this is a bit less, this is about 80. So it's slightly more space needed above here than there is at the bottom. So our height of our page is 150, or sorry, it's 300. So what we're going to do is go down 150 and then maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to come down 170, just that should be about fine. So 170, and I'm going to draw my baseline. And again, I need space on the left, but I don't need space on the right. Okay. So we know this is going to be 106. Okay, so there's my 0 mark and 106. And if it's an ordinary level question, it's always going to be an equilateral triangle. So equilateral triangles are 60 degrees. So we'll draw this up like this. Like so. So I'm going to try to keep it in the colours that they give. So there's my equilateral triangle. So I measured out 106. Just to recap there, I came down 170 to start for the base of the triangle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw the X, Y, Z. So I'm going to keep them a light peach so that they won't get in the way too much. So basically we can see from the question that they're 30 degrees. I'm going to draw them up like so. And there we go. There's part A completed. Okay, so I have put up the marking scheme to tell you the exact amount of marks for that. I don't have it here right in front of me. Basically, that's the start part. So that's A done. B then says draw the elevation and plan as shown. I'm going to draw the plan first, but it doesn't really matter the order in which you do. So they used a blue to bring them down. So I'll try to keep things consistent. So we'll draw them down. Now again, one of the hard things to know is how far down do you have to come. So what you want to check here as well is, because often you draw the semicircle too close, is how far out does this stick? That sticks out a reasonable bit. So I'd say I have enough here in terms of that if I draw the semicircle there, and I should have a bit of space for my my front edge of this here to stick out. So that looks to be good, to be well proportioned. I hope that it is. And just to check what it is, I came down about 85 there for that line if you want to check on your own page. So again, if this is in the exam, it's not a big issue. It's only an issue here because we're using an A3 page, and probably you're working at home on an A3 page as well. So the first thing that we want to do is we need to find the center of this. Now technically at ordinary level, if we bring this down, that's going to give us the center. However, because that won't work at higher level, because most of us are going to be moving on to higher level, and again, depending on how the marks go, they may expect you to do this anyway. we're going to bisect this first. So as long as I set my compass over halfway, I draw it from both sides, and do the same on the bottom. Okay, so there's my center line, and again, just to keep it light, we've got a peach there to draw that, and then we'll draw my semicircle like so. Okay, so that's good. Right, so that's that part done. What we need to do now is we need to get the corner on which here to draw our triangle to. So we're going to bring this down here. Right. So that's my point for my triangle. So it's always going to be a right angle triangle in the semicircle. And if I draw these edges from here to here, so from that corner up to here, that gives us that. And that gives us that. Now typically what I'd do is I'd set my adjustable set square to that. Again, if it's a higher level question, it may or may not come in at 45 degrees. But if we check here, all ordinary level questions, this will work out at 45. We should always check with a set square that we have because it makes it easier. And we can start. We may as well construct the plan. So we know it's 50 this way. So I'll take my heavy marker because I know that's going to be right. So 50, and it's going to be 70 this way. Okay, so that looks pretty much right. It should go slightly less than the gauge, and hopefully left enough space there. So my 85 seemed to work. Okay, so I'll have to gap 85. That looks good. Obviously half of 50 is 25. And we'll come back at a later stage and mark the little points to show there in the plan view on the question. Okay, so you'll see there's a series of dots here. They're got to do with the door. We'll come back in a few minutes and we'll work those out. So that's that part done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to project out this way. Now, the key thing is understanding what angle I'm projecting out at and why. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my 30-degree set square. But the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going the same angle as this line here, right? Or alternatively, you can look at it as I'm going at 90 degrees to the green line here. So again, for ordinary level, this will always be this angle. If it's only ordinary level you're doing, you just say, well, it's always a 30-degree angle. If you understand it, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Because again, it's also going to see. But at higher level, you have to remember that that line there is parallel to that line there. Technically, you did the same here. That line there was parallel to that line there, but you didn't think about it. You just thought about it as being straight down. So again, if we look at our question, just see, does this stick out? It sticks out a little bit. Do we need a bit of a gap here? We may. We don't know. It has not fully completed. But we've loads of space here. So we'll come out as far as so. We'll draw a green line. And again, we'll bisect it. So once we get into the habit of how to do it, the same method tends to apply most times. So hopefully that's... No, it may not be long enough because it wasn't. Okay, so I'll adjust it out again. Sorry. Okay, so the reason that happened was because the last time I had set it to the exact radius there. So obviously it's too short from the image. So I'm drawing the two of them. So that's that. There's my center point. Do now is I'll draw my semicircle. Just double check it's accurate. Okay, so there's my semicircle, and again, this has to come out. Sorry, just let that adjust there. This has to come out to meet this. Okay, so that's the correct way. And again, for higher level questions especially, it's important that we know these methods. So that's my method. Okay, and again, I'll join this point to these two corners, and that'll give me my right angle triangle. Okay. And we start to construct our elevation. So the one thing to be aware of is obviously if this is my elevation, this is my plan, any information that's missing in this view may be given here. So if we look here at this, we've not given a width here. But the reason is because we don't need it, because we know already that the width of the doghouse is 50. So therefore this must be 50. If that's 40, then our gap must be 5 and 5. So we'll come out 50, mark it, and then we come in our 5, as we said, and our 5 there. Now, this angle here is technically a 15-degree angle. I don't have an adjustable or a set square that does 15 degrees. I can actually balance 2 set squares to make 15 degree, but hopefully at this stage, in most people's cases, they'll have an adjustable set square. So this is invaluable 2. So I won't set it necessarily to 15 degrees or worry whether it's exactly that, but you'll see here that it pretty much works out at 15 degrees. And then I can just twist it this way and draw my view. So again, I'm going to just do it light here just for the sake that before I put on the measurements accurately, before I heavy them in with my black marker. Okay, so we have 3 heights that we have to work with. We have 30, we have 40, and we have 60. Now, I forgot one measurement here. From here, let's see, I forgot about the center point of this. So obviously I should have had a mark for the 25. And we draw that up the middle. Okay, and then we twist this back and draw our parallel lines across. Okay, so we're creating a crate there, and again, that's good practice. Okay, and now we'll start to heavy in our point. So the outside of my dog's house, yep, that's correct, like so. Okay, so it's outside the kennel. And technically at that stage, if I want to, I can start to construct this view here, but we may as well draw in the door at this stage. So just be careful, the center point of the door is on the 30mm line, not on the 40mm line. So I'll send it to this. Okay. And raise that. So we have part B done. Okay, and again there's a few dots here that I'll come back to in a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is construct the outside of the cannon. So that's the easier part. That's where I'm going to get most of my marks. This has to come down at this angle, and in this case, normally I'll have a question is there 30 degrees, so it makes it a little bit simpler. So I'll use maybe a different, slightly different pink if I have it handy. Yeah, okay, so we'll use this to bring down all these lines. So if you're ever unsure, you should be bringing down all these and you'll accidentally get points. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down the 5 outer points. I'm going to not worry about the door for the minute. But as I said, if you got stuck on the day of the exam, bring them all down, bring all these up, and then worry about what you've got correct and what you haven't got correct. So I'm just going to bring up this side, right? And I'm going to stop at that instead of bringing them all up for a minute and just look at what I have constructed here. So we're showing in the question, again, you want to use as many pieces of info as you have to help solve the thing. So what I have is basically this was brought up here. Now I've already brought up this line, which they stopped, but for some reason they should have continued that on, and that would have given me the side. And again, if you look at the question here, they're very good at giving pictures that show you what you're expected to finish off at. So if you bring this up, that would be, oh, hopefully I didn't go too far. I did go a little bit too far. I used the wrong line. Anyways. Okay, so there's my wall at the side of the doghouse. So what I know now basically is that this will come across here, and this point here will come up to meet it. And again, if we draw this across, you'll see that that lines up with that. So what I have basically is this part here. Now I won't heavy this in for the minute, but, well actually no, because there will be an opening in it. So I won't heavy that in for the minute. And what I want to do now is bring up the upper points. So basically this point and this point. Bring up this and bring up this. Now what you have to do is think about, well, what's that line there? That line there is the top of the dog's house, and that's that edge there. So basically that would give me a starting point here and a finishing point. And this here will join to this. And what you should notice is that if you do it accurate, that should look parallel. and this here would join to this. Now, when I have this done, I can see, hold on, there must be something else here. I have two potential ways. I could use my sliding set square, and I could say, well, that has to be parallel. Or I can just bring up this point, which I actually, by pure luck, have already. And that's that. And again, the key thing is, do they look parallel? Yes, they do. So that looks fine. So there we go, there's part C done. So the next thing it talks about, it says, draw the front of the kennel, which includes the semicircular opening. So what I would do first is I would just get, well, we'll get the easy part. We'll get the straight cut in first. Okay. So the first thing that we knew was these two bits in here were 5. Okay, so whatever happens in elevation must happen in plan. So it'll come in 5, not come in 5. And that will do that. And what I'll do is, I'll very simply project that up there. Oops, this may have slipped a small bit. Okay, because it should look equal. It looks a little bit more on one side than another. And again, what am I bringing down? It's these uprights that I'm drawing. So again, what I need to know is where will they stop. I bring this point down, and I bring down this point. That's basically my opening. So again, due to my markers, it might look a slight bit more to one side, but the method is correct. So there we go. So there's the opening there. And technically, if I want to at this stage now, I'm going to assume the dog can walk in there. There's no edge there. I can draw that back, although it is going to be hit by some type of curve in a second. So what I need to do is split this curve. Now, some of us, because we're used to doing axonometric or isometric projection before, we split this into 60 and 30. I wouldn't typically. I would typically take two measurements that are easy to use. So if this is 20, right, and they show in the question that we had 2 additional points in between it, we're going to pick maybe in between. 20 doesn't divide by 3 exactly, but 7 is roughly correct. So I'm going to come in 7 from this side, put a little mark, and I'm going to come in 40. And I'm going to do the same other side. So I'm going to make it 7, and I'm going to come in 40. And what I'll do is I'll just bring these points up to meet this. And there we go. Same there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll label them. Let me see if I try a different colour. Maybe this purple might be seeable. So we'll call this 0. We'll call this point 1. We'll call this point 2. This point 3. And I just put a little mark and I'll just make it a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, so I have 6 points there. And again, it's sort of like what they show here. Now, theirs may be exactly split equal, I'm not sure, but I want to make it easier to transfer the measurements rather than anything else. Now, I could transfer them with a compass, but I'm happy because I made them exactly that. I come in 7, and then 14 from this side, and then I come in 7, and then 14 from this side. So, if I look here, this was my 5 point, there's point 0, there's point 1, the first one, there's point 2. Point 3 was the top, just underneath the apex of the roof. Point 4, point 5, and point 6. So if I look, well, I have 0, which was that. I found 0 already, and I found 6. Now, technically, if I wasn't sure how to do this in the exam, I'm better off sketching that in and giving it a guess rather than leaving it blank. Or say, what might happen in the exam is I might run out of time. Okay? But again, what I want to do basically is make a series of grids. So what I would typically do would be to go, well, look, I'm going to bring them all up. And even if I get confused, I'll have all the points there. I just may not have intersected the right ones. So again, I'll bring all these down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So obviously there's a lot of lines there. Try to zoom that in a small bit on top of each other. Right, but it's just a matter of taking your time and just being careful with it. So this was 1, and this is 1 brought down. So it's basically that pink. And again, use of colour like this can be handy in an exam. Okay, 2, 3 is the dark pink one, and this is the top one here. 4 is this one here. So 4 is, no, sorry, 4 is this one here. That's right, isn't it? That's 4 going up there. Okay, so the last one is just 5. So 5 is this one just inside, I think. And it's this one here. Okay, so So that gives me a nice neat curve there. Obviously, if there wasn't any markers, I could blend it in a little bit better. And then obviously, as I said, don't forget about the inside edge, which would be inside the channel. And again, you're given a hint if you check back to the question, oh, sort of do spot the differences or anything that I thought. This would be a common part. Just the last little mark that you'd get, but a common thing that people will forget. And that's basically the question done like so.